Not all stories start with a spark. Some start with a look, not the sort that two people share when they fall in love, but the kind that someone silently asks themselves when they look in the mirror. I have a vivid memory of that afternoon. The woman seated across from me had lovely brown hair that was bathed in a warm glow from the sunlight that streamed through the trees outside my counseling office. She wasn't in tears. She didn't have a smile. Her eyes appeared to have recently weathered a storm. Keep quiet. Laden with nameless objects. Lena was her name. 29. She was the other woman to the world. A brief sentence. It's simple to judge. However, she was far too little to bear the burden of everything she had lived, was living, and would continue to live. I know some people will hate me. She continued, glancing at me. People may feel sorry for me. I only want to share the story today though. Not to defend it. Just to be honest, this is how it actually happened. I could detect something underneath her steady speech. The voice of someone who once had hope and paid a high price for it. A sound that only those who have lived in the shadows can produce. They met by happenstance, she informed me. Not a moment of drama. Only a quick meeting. A discussion that, for some reason, stuck with her for longer than she had anticipated. A man who appeared composed and experienced. There was a peaceful focus in his eyes that caused her heart to slow. She claimed that it felt like a dream she had been having without realizing it. She was unaware of his marital status. It was too late by the time she discovered it. He had already won her heart. Additionally, her mind lacked the strength to hold her back. The marriage, he claimed, was really a formality, that they maintained appearances, and remained together for the children. That he had never realized how much he needed me like a breath of fresh air. When Lena stated it, she didn't cry. However, I saw her lips gently tighten, as though she were attempting to hide something that was once lovely, but now felt somewhat embarrassing. I gave him my faith. Or perhaps I just wanted to. I believed that love might be an exception. That perhaps he would pick me if I loved him enough. I didn't answer. Don't nod. Don't pass judgment. Nothing but quiet. Because women like Lena no longer seek out right and wrong. They want someone who actually listens, maybe for the first time. She occupied a tiny flat by herself. Worked for a mid-sized company as an accountant. Before this man intervened and rocked the basis of everything she believed to be secure. Her life was calm and stable. I first promised myself that I would leave. However, I always stayed when he hugged me and murmured, "I need you." Lena wasn't a denialist. She was aware that she wasn't the main focus. She lacked a wedding, a title, and genuine dinner dates. She had a quiet apartment where she was always the one waiting. Hurried hugs after work, and texts at midnight. She muttered, "I don't know what I am to him, but I am aware that he is my entire world." Those were things I had heard from other women before. Lena, however, did not experience excruciating pain. They arrived with a composed resignation that bordered on defiance. As though she had known the price and chose to stay. There was a long, silent period before the session finished. I escorted her to the exit. As she stepped outside, her tiny shoulders were bathed in the golden hour sunlight. And I pondered, how many women are in relationships that were never intended to endure? Yet they continue because they felt loved for a brief period of time. And sometimes that emotion, no matter how fleeting, is strong enough to force someone to sacrifice years of their life for a small taste of what felt real. Real love is seen, it holds your hand in the daylight, it calls your name aloud in a crowd, I've heard others remark. Lena, however, believed that love existed in quiet. The voids of the night were inhaled by it. All it did was live in secret. She had changed by the time she came back to my office the next day. More transparent. This time, the cautious tone was still present, but it swayed like a song without lyrics, soft, uncertain, and looking for its conclusion. I used to think that love was still love even if it was incorrect. Because I always felt important when he looked at me. Lena told me that everything inside of her became a conflict after she found out he was married. Love against reason, heart against mind. She had attempted to get out. She didn't respond to his texts. When his number appeared, she turned off her phone. But all the walls fell down with just one message. I miss you. They had a covert meeting. Hidden down a back street is a peaceful coffee shop. A hotel by the side of the road, far enough from town. Short trips, hours of time snatched. She would dress exquisitely every time they met, picking out the dress he had previously mentioned liking. She arrived with the anxious enthusiasm of a girl going out for the first time. However, Lena was also the one who later made her way home by herself through dim, silent streets, each step serving as a reminder that she was still alone. She remarked, "He was always kind. He paid attention. When I cried, he consoled me. He once skipped a crucial meeting to bring me soup when I was unwell. Even if there weren't many of those times, they were genuine." "What has been the hardest part for you in all of this?" I inquired gently. She hesitated, pondered for a long time. "The hardest aspect," he said, "was learning that my love had to live as though it were a source of shame. I can't upload a picture. In public, I can't refer to him as my boyfriend. I know deep down that I'm not included in the true picture. Therefore, I can't ask for anything." Lena was aware of what the public saw, the other female, the wrecker of homes. However, she had no intention of destroying anything. She hadn't made any plans or plots. Like everyone else she had loved, she had simply fallen in love with the wrong person at the wrong moment. I place no responsibility on anyone. Not him, not his spouse. I only hold myself accountable for allowing my emotions to go amok. On some evenings, she remained up only to browse his Facebook profile, gazing at family photos of him smiling with their children while holding his wife's hand. She had no feelings of jealousy. She felt unnoticed, like an understudy hoping stupidly to be called onto the stage despite the fact that her name was never in the script, while witnessing a play already in progress. I wonder sometimes if he would even search for me if I vanished. I didn't respond, since we already know the answers to some questions. All we can hope for is that someone will say something more gentle. Lena's head dropped. In her lap, her thin fingers wrapped around one another. I understand. I only play a little role in his life, a role that he can enter at any time and exit with equal ease. But he is everything to me. The room froze at that line. Outside, the window cracks let in the first winter gusts. Something clenched inside me. How many people are out there penning love songs that no one will ever hear and loving in silence? How many Lenas are still waiting for someone who isn't really theirs, only to experience a little moment of joy before experiencing twice the loneliness again? I gave her a gentle glance and said, "Lena, you know that it's okay to love someone. However, you don't deserve the type of love that makes you hide your tears. Keep your voice down and live like a shadow." She remained silent, simply gave a slow nod. Her eyes were far away, as if she had just heard her own speech for the first time clearly. There are relationships that are never named. Not because they don't exist, but rather because giving them names would just make the suffering more difficult to bear. Lena continued. She wasn't defensive or reluctant, though this time. She confronted her suffering head-on, as if it had grown to be a silent friend that awoke to her every morning with unanswered inquiries, missed calls, and unread emails. She added, "To be honest, I have no idea what I am to him. A companion? A romantic partner? Or simply a peaceful nook where he retreats to when he's fed up with the world?" She spoke quietly, not resentful, not shattered. However, that serenity ached more than any tears. Without a title, love turns into a question mark. You start to distrust yourself in addition to the other person. Am I significant enough? Am I deceiving myself? Do I even have the right to love? Lena shared with me how many days she waited for a single text. Simply put, "I miss you." But there was no sound on the screen. "And rough day," was the text she sent at last. "Yeah, just swamped," was all he said. "Don't apologize."
No justification.
And Lena realized what those words meant. A meal with the family. A peaceful evening spent with his spouse and children at home. A life she did not participate in. I used to believe that I would accept anything as long as he returned to me. However, I lost more of myself the more he returned. "What's left for me in this relationship?" she said, after lying awake in the dark on some evenings while listening to her own heartbeat pound out a question. A partnership that has no name is one that holds no promise, no defense, no future. Just a flimsy gift, like paper so thin that even the smallest breeze could rip it. I sat in silence. I have previously heard tales similar to Lena's, but in some way the heart is still wounded every time. I am unable to present him to my friends. Our images cannot be posted. I can't publicly refer to him as my boyfriend. Even though I'm the person he turns to when he's in pain, I still stand next to him like a stranger. Even though she was never given a name throughout his life, she offered him every bit of herself. She preserved all of their moments together, even though she never publicly touched his hand. She stayed despite being fully aware of the consequences of finishing in second place. I gave her a quick glance and said, "Lena, why do you stay?" She remained silent for a while. Finally, she murmured, "Because he's the only person who's ever made me feel like I wasn't invisible." Something I know many wounded hearts have thought but few have ever said aloud. That was a really straightforward sentence. There are many things a lady can endure, but it's not treachery that hurts her the most. It's recognizing that she is nothing compared to the person she has devoted her entire life to. I gently said, "Lena, do you know what happens when a man truly loves you?" While resting my hand on the table, "You won't ever need to inquire about your significance to him." She smiled a little, the kind that falls over a calm lake like rain, but doesn't reach the eyes. "I understand," she said. "However, I'm afraid. I fear that no one else will ever love me as much as he did if I let him go." I gave her a direct look, and I didn't see weakness. The girl was begging for love, but she was only offering crumbs in return. "Love isn't something you beg for, Lena," I murmured softly. "You don't have to battle for it. When someone chooses you, holds your hand and declares that you are the only one, you deserve that sort of love." She bowed her head. She shook her shoulders. She didn't say anything, but I knew she was crying silently, inwardly. Anyone who loves more in a relationship is haunted by the fact that the other person might never pick you. That afternoon, I can still clearly recall Lena sitting in the chair across from me for a considerable amount of time without moving. The sky outside had become a gentle gray. Her face was softly shadowed by the dying light. It was weary but sensitive. She started talking softly, as she described the night that everything changed. Not because of a dramatic event. There was no quarrel, no heartfelt farewell. But occasionally, a silence too profound to ignore causes people to awaken from a dream rather than a start. She remarked, "I waited for him all night. Just a quick text at midnight. I apologize for being late getting home. Not able to come. That was it. No cause. No feeling. No indication that he had desired to be present." Oddly, Lena didn't cry either. Not even anger filled her. She simply fell silent. "I realized then that I had been waiting in silence for too long," she added. "Perhaps he assumed I would always be there since I was so quiet." That statement struck me in the chest like a chilly wind blast. That same emotional trap is a common one for women. They believe that the other person will notice their affection more if they show it. The likelihood that the other will turn back increases with the amount of time they wait. Sometimes, though, that boundless tolerance just renders them invisible. Lena continued. She described their last chat to me for the first time. No yelling, no sobbing. Just a silent farewell, encapsulated in unspoken words. She remarked, "I asked him one question. Could you choose between your family and me if you had to?" He fell silent. "For a long time. I can't leave my kids," he remarked. She hesitated, then smiled distantly. "I got it. What's wrong with a father adoring his kids? Just knowing that I was never a viable option made me sad. Just a place to rest." When life became too much, he paused under the tranquil shade. I remained silent. Not every grief requires guidance. All it needs is space to breathe. That evening I didn't give a call. Did not send a text. I removed his name not to forget but to give up on him. I gave Lena a look. She had changed from the frail woman who had entered my office. She now possessed a serene strength, like someone who knew she wouldn't walk back into the storm after having passed through it. She remarked, "I think I just woke up from a really long dream. A lovely one, but not genuine." She raised her head. She had lovely but no longer wet eyes. "Knowing when to let go is perhaps the bravest form of love," she muttered. I put my notebook down and turned to face her, allowing the silence to remain for a while. Then I softly said, "Lena, Some people enter our lives to remind us that we are so much more valuable than to stay. She gave a nod, in a light manner, as though the fury within her had finally subsided. Even though they don't say anything, some people manage to leave a gap that allows us to look back on our entire lives. It had been weeks. No more meets in private. No more spending sleepless nights anticipating texts that never arrived. Then Lena entered my office one more. She didn't appear as broken as she had previously. She also didn't glow, as individuals do when they first fall in love. However, she had a distinct quality, as though a fragile shell had finally broken, exposing the self that had been hiding beneath it all along. Whispering as she twisted a tissue in her hand, she uttered, "I don't even know where to start. All I know is that I feel alive for the first time in a long time." After everything was over, she informed me about the initial days. No remorse was expressed, not a shred of hope, nothing but quiet. The house is still intact after a hurricane, but everything within has changed, she declared. I began cleaning my apartment. Take away the dresses I was wearing when we first met. Threw away the notebooks I had used to record all of his promises. I was actually reconstructing myself when I restructured the place. I gave a soft smile without uttering a word, because I was aware that a woman's final decision to pick herself was the most important moment of all. I started going out more, she added. Just coffee, books. I enrolled in the painting class that I had put off for 2 years due to the fact that he was always busy. I gave my mother, whom I had neglected for months while pursuing someone who never picked me, another call. She stopped for a while, silently looking at something that only she could see. It felt empty at first. At night, there is no one to text. No messages asking if you've eaten. Then gradually it began to feel lighter. Since I had stopped waiting for anyone, that is freedom's understated beauty. It doesn't roar. However, it gradually teaches you how to step out into the light and open your own doors. Do you ever feel regret? I whispered. She gave a head shake.
No.
Because I've realized that loving someone isn't an error. I made the error of leaving myself behind in order to be close to them. Not because her words were eloquent, but rather because I could hear the woman she had grown into. They stopped me cold. The other woman was no longer her. The girl who only existed in moments of stealth was gone. Beginning with herself, she was relearning how to love. She remarked, "I used to believe that I was nothing without him. But now that I know, I'm a woman who can start over, regardless of how severely I've been harmed." Then, as the gentle breeze blew through the window, we sat quietly, and Lena smiled for the first time in our chat. "You know," she remarked, "I got myself a bunch of flowers yesterday. I didn't get them from anyone. I simply found them to be lovely, and I had the thought, I'm worthy of them." And when someone quits waiting for love from others, that may be the most subtle yet significant turning point in their recovery process. It starts sowing its seeds inside of them, and I firmly think that Lena is at last headed in the right direction. A woman's rebirth following heartbreak is not marked by a significant milestone. No standing applause, no soaring music in the background. It begins subtly, with minor details. Lena no longer winced when her phone rang with a message, just like that morning. One gentle spring morning she told me about it. Her face, no longer pallid and no longer haunting, was bathed in a bright glow as sunlight rushed through my office window. She remarked, "I've been getting up earlier. I'm not worried that he might text me. Nevertheless, because I want to brew myself some tea and enjoy the sounds of the birds outside my balcony." I said nothing, because I was aware that the first genuine indication that someone is emerging from the shadows is when they start talking about little pleasures. "Have I told you?" She smiled softly as she said, "I came across an old lilac blouse that I cherished. He once said, 'That color makes you look older.' So I stopped wearing it. I put it on once more. Went for a stroll. I bought a yellow rose for myself and placed it on the table in a vase." She discussed her experience taking meditation sessions at the community center, where she learned to sit with her feelings rather than run away from them, and to take deep breaths. Lena replied, "I don't try to forget anymore," as her eyes strayed outside the room. "I've discovered how to remember painlessly, to keep in mind so I can comprehend." and to comprehend in order for me to let go. She didn't use prepared self-help sentences. These were hard-won truths, carved from lonely nights spent reading books, writing in a journal, or spending peaceful evenings curled up in a blanket and telling herself, "It's going to be okay." To ease the pain of waiting. "You told me once that what we settle for isn't always our real limit. Just the limit we accept when we haven't learned to love ourselves." Lena recalled from a prior session. She gave me a look. "Now I understand. I was scared to claim a whole chapter in my own life, so I settled for being a vague footnote in someone else's." There was stillness in the room. It felt like a lengthy sigh after holding your breath for too long. Yet it wasn't heavy. With a calmer tone, she said, "You know what else? I've begun to put my goals for the future in writing. Not maybe he'll change or I hope he chooses me. Right now it's, I desire autonomy. I desire a true family. I want a man that doesn't hide in the shadows and can see me completely." I grinned. Her eyes had a calm, steady glow that only people who have broken and rebuilt themselves piece by piece can have. Lena put a gentle palm over her heart and added, "I think that love isn't always about holding on tightly. Knowing when to let go in order to preserve the aspect of yourself that is still whole is sometimes what it means to be in love." You can tell a woman has returned home when she says anything like that. Not to an old sweetheart, not to an old delusion, nor to an old apartment. However, to herself, complete, rooted, and at last prepared for the type of love that doesn't conceal or demand that she shrink. It's not always pyrotechnics and big announcements that bring love back into a woman's life. Soft, peaceful, and softer than any promise ever made by the person who broke her heart. It can occasionally return like late afternoon sunlight. That quiet afternoon, Lena sat across from me. Unlike when we originally met, she was not dressed in dark hues. Her outfit today was a gentle shade of blue. The kind of blue that appears in the sky after a storm has gone. There was still a silence in her face, but not the doubtful sort. It was a calm based on trust, compassion, and maturity. With a bashful smile on her lips, she added, "It's been just over 2 months. He's an old coworker. Someone I never imagined would be more than a courteous greeting in the corridor." "What caught your attention about him?" I inquired. "He didn't show up like some savior," she said after giving it some thought. "No pretentious words, no ostentatious motions. But he listened to me every time I spoke. He simply stayed without interjecting or attempting to correct me." I gave a nod. Sometimes the ones who arrive with a jacket when the wind gets strong are the ones who don't say, "I love you." And true love is based on that kind of subdued tenderness. She went on, "He doesn't ask a lot of questions about my past, but I want to share with him freely. Therefore, I don't need to conceal anything. I don't need to pretend. I don't need to demonstrate my worth." Remembering, she grinned. There were no flowers or revelations about the movie plot when he first picked me up after work. "Just a cup of my favorite kind of tea, hot." "Hard day," he murmured, passing it to me. "I brought tea. You don't need to speak. Simply be." I remained silent, because I knew that a cup of tea, delivered in silence and with care, could feel like a miracle to someone who had once clung to love out of fear and reliance, and had lived in the shadows of secret. "I'm not sure where this is going," Lena said quietly. "However, I'm not risking my entire life on a promise this time. I am simply strolling one step at a time, with a companion who is prepared to go at a leisurely pace." When she first introduced him to her friends, she told me about it. Not guilty. Don't hide. She was being tenderly, openly adored. No more secretly sending late-night texts. No more alone vacations spent anticipating a call that never materialized. She remarked, "I never thought I'd get to have not having to hide. I once believed that love required sacrifice, because it required suffering and waiting. However, I can now understand that genuine love is being chosen every day without requiring you to give up your tranquility in order to feel deserving of it." She caught my attention for a long time. The woman in front of me had stopped crying in private over a man who was unable to pick her. She was now a lady who had made her own decision and, in doing so, had selected a loving, dependable, and graceful partner. A fairy tale isn't a love that doesn't conceal itself. Could start in the most commonplace ways, like a friendly look or a hand that doesn't hold on too firmly, but is always there when you need support. And the kind of love that never makes you feel isolated within your relationship is the kind that is worth preserving. It was a morning in early fall. Like a gentle curtain pulled by time, the sunlight trickled through the window of my workplace. As I was going through some folders, my phone began to vibrate softly on the table. The screen flashed up a name you recognized, Lena. I hadn't heard from her in a very long time. She had stated, "I think I'm okay now," with a soft grin the last time we met. "I'll let you know if anything new occurs." She only sent me one phrase in her text this morning, but it was enough to make my heart stop. "I sent out the invitations just now. I'm getting married." I took a while to respond. As an alternative, I closed my eyes, inhaled deeply, and let the memories of Lena to fade in like a roll of old film. The woman who used to sit across from me had eyes that were worn down by an unnamed love. Learning to love herself was the first step in the woman's journey to rediscover love. I recalled how Lena had questioned me during one of our first sessions. "Although I used to be the other woman, do you still think I deserve a true love?" And I had responded to her with all of my faith. No one is destined to always be a supporting character in another person's story. It doesn't matter who you were. What counts is that you got up, decided to heal with courage and grace, and resolved never to break someone else again. Therefore, Lena's message today was more than a simple update. It was a proclamation that she had emerged from the darkness, that this time, instead of waiting to be selected, she made the decision to choose herself and her happiness. I checked my email. A straightforward digital wedding invitation showed up. Matthew and Lena. After finding serenity, we discovered one another. A picture of the two of them was underneath. Hand in hand, they stood under the cover of fall trees. There was no ornate dress, no elaborately manufactured background. You could feel the warmth of two people staring at each other via the screen. I grinned. Intense, passionate, and frequently short-lived. Some people come together like a June storm. Then there are those like Lena, who have matured through the wrong individuals before meeting the right one. They have endured the long journeys, the lonely evenings, and the lessons they have learned the hard way. And perhaps that's why the subsequent love feels softer, more truthful, powerful enough to recover. To you, who's presently listening, let me assure you that it's acceptable if you've erred, fallen in love with the wrong person, or strayed too far from your true self. What counts are your decision to stop, your ability to forgive yourself, your fortitude to distance yourself from the hurt, and your continued belief in a different form of love. Since genuine love doesn't force you to hide, it doesn't make you smaller. You are not left to wait in the dark. Peace comes from true love. You gain respect as a result. It also allows you to be who you are, completely and unapologetic. Envelope with arrow. These secret stories are the whispered realities of hearts that once lost the ability to love, and I am merely the voice behind them. However, I've come to firmly believe in one thing as a result of every voyage, including Lena's. We are all deserving of love once more. In full, gently, and in harmony. In the next story, another heart will whisper its way home, and I'll see you there. The starting point for healing is at Life Whispers.